This is our brain. It is complex, sophisticated, and fragile. And it is not at all easy to understand. However, the brain is involved in everything that we do. This brain directs our choices, our emotions, our social relationships, our human functioning, and all our goals. Since the brain plays an important role in our lives, we have to understand, nurture, and take care of our brains. We have to strengthen our awareness of the capacity, potential, and limitation of the brain. Let us take note, when the care of the brain is taken for granted, we destroy the brain in the process, and in effect, we also destroy our lives. Most of the times, the destroyed brain is irreparable. Similarly, in the school, learning will never happen without the brain. We use the brain in teaching, learning, and assessment activities. But the question is, how do we integrate brain dynamics in teaching, learning, and assessment operations? What exactly is our awareness on how students' brains work in our classrooms? Very importantly, how do we nurture and take care of the brains of our students in our schools? The fact is, we do not have visible access to how a brain works with a learning stimulus. Even if we attach an electroencephalogram or an EEG device to the heads of our students, we can only see electrical signals to pinpoint brain activity. Aside from being expensive and impractical, it is not enough to capture the complex movements of the brain in connection with learning activities. Now, how will teachers help and train students to nurture and care for the invisible and intangible brains? My interest about the brain started when I worked as a clinical psychologist and program director in a school for children with special needs. The diverse needs of children with special needs are overwhelming and complex, and these challenging situations have pushed me further to explore and discover best ways to address their developmental needs and academic performance. In developing effective programs for these beautiful, unique children who have autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, ADHD, and mental difficulties, I explore the connection between behaviors and brain dynamics. I was searching for a structure or approach in integrating the brain into my work with children in educational settings, but to no avail. I did not find a brain program that fits my goals for positive development of children with special needs. Therefore, in my own volition, I started to deepen my research and build a brain-based approach that I could use in educational and psychological services. Furthermore, in my private practice as clinical psychologist with children who experience physical and sexual abuse, trauma from armed conflict, and family-related problems, I extended my exploration and application of brain dynamics to counseling and psychotherapy. So far, I had been successful in helping vulnerable children using brain dynamics. And later on, when I observed classroom practices and taught and supervised pre- and in-service primary school teachers for 10 years on the application of educational psychology in classroom setting, my experience and observation about the brains of students widened. I also discovered that there is a lack of awareness of the integration of brain dynamics and brain care into the teaching, learning, and assessment activities. On the other hand, also, I discovered that brain dynamics and brain care is not part of the curriculum. Likewise, brain dynamics and brain care is not part of teacher education. It's slowly but progressively, from at least 20 years of psychological and educational experiences in the field, with children, teachers, and parents, I extracted elements of brain operations and approaches that will help develop and nurture the resilient brains of young learners in our schools and classrooms. And this led to the development of a teacher training program which I called brain pedagogy. Brain pedagogy has two fundamental goals. The first goal of brain pedagogy is to train teachers on the integration of the brain in the curriculum, specifically in teaching, learning, and assessment operations in a non-intimidating, pragmatic, easy to apply, easy to understand, and easy to sustain approach. And the second goal of brain pedagogy is to train teachers to help students in the development of their resilient brains. To achieve the goals of brain pedagogy, we have 4 specific programs for teachers. The first program is the brain education. The second program is brain coaching. The third program is brain health. And the fourth program is brain action research. In brain education program, teachers will explore the 7 interconnected and interdependent elements of brain dynamics in classrooms. And what are those elements? Number 1 is the interaction between the brain sensory and memory. Number 2 is the brain activity, which is to stimulate, process, and to program. Number 3 is the internal and external stimulus that activates the brain activity. Number 4 is the capacity, potential, and limitation of the brain sensory and memory. Number 5 is the environmental and genetic differences that influence brain function. Number 6 is the element of time that works differently for each student. And number 7 is the resilient brain pathways. These elements are essential to understand the behavioral response of the brain to learning stimuli. In brain coaching program, teachers will train students and parents in managing and optimizing the capacity, potential, and limitation of each brain. Take note that the capacity, potential, and limitation of each brain is different for all students. In brain health program, teachers and students will advocate and promote brain care and brain resilience in school, classrooms, and communities. In Brain Action Research Program, teachers will enhance their research skills and competencies to improve teaching and learning approaches in classroom through brain dynamics. Teachers will immediately address classroom concerns using data and information. What is the optimal outcome of the Brain Pedagogy Teacher Training Program? The optimal outcome is the development of the resilient brain of our young learners. What exactly do we mean by resilient brains of our students? A brain is resilient when a child is deeply aware and informed in managing the dynamics of the brain sensory and memory, in managing the capacity, potential, and limitation of the brain sensory and memory, in managing brain health, and lastly, in managing the 7 resilient brain pathways. By operations, outcomes, and measures, a child's resilient brain has physical resilience, emotional resilience, social resilience, cognitive resilience, communication resilience, ecological resilience, and last but not the least, is spiritual resilience. In our most challenging time, we do not only need children to survive, we also need to have children that will thrive. And for this, we need the resilient brain. And for this to happen, we need to have teachers who also have the resilient brain, who will train the resilient brain of our students. If this happens, having the resilient brain of teachers, the resilient brain of our students, truly indeed, no child will be left behind. Thank you for listening. This is Dr. Rogers Noguera offering the Brain Pedagogy Teacher Training Program for the resilient brains of our young learners.